7:33, sorry, we're 3 minutes late. Calling order to the November 2021 monthly council meeting for the town of Oolitic. We're gonna open with, Michelle's got a few things that she wants to talk about.
Thank you. I wanted to talk about the stormwater project just a little bit tonight. The grant agreement has been fully signed. We're good to go there. The environmental review was completed. We've got the environmental release. I believe that was on November the 1st. And I know Drew and Commonwealth are working on your plans and specs right now. And that will need to be bid out by March the 10th. And so I think we're hoping to bid it out in February, I believe, is our goal there. And the release of funds deadline is going to be May the 10th, but hopefully we get good bids in and we are well ahead of that schedule. Cross our fingers there with supplies and materials and contractors and all that good stuff. And then the actual end date for that grant, just as a reminder, isn't until March the 10th of 2023. So I'm sure we've got plenty of time to complete that project. I do know projects that we're doing right now though have long lead times on materials and supplies yet because of some shortages and stuff in that regards. So hopefully that lets up a little bit before you guys get yours going.
So in reality, what if it is
We can
supply
get-
issues? Are they
We can
being,
get an extension.
Okay, that's what I wanted
Yeah,
to-
they're having to do a lot of those right now
Okay.
in the state on some. I currently have we have a few in the office and the end date's on our February of this year. And I
Oh,
have
wow.
one that's not even started yet.
Oh,
The end
no.
date's February, so.
okay,
Now, is that targeting specifically for potentially cost overruns because of, like lumber being up, things like that?
Well, that's a concern too, how bids come in, because, we can't request more grant money.
Right.
So that would be on to more local, that would be needed, so we'll cross our fingers for some good bids. It is important to have alternates as much as possible whenever you do bid the project out, just for those reasons, so. Tonight, I do have our SIDC admin contract for assisting with the stormwater grant. And what that is we assist with all the admin reporting, the financial draws. We've assisted with the environmental review process on it already. And then labor standards is a piece of it, since there's Davis Bacon wages once construction starts, that all the payrolls get reviewed of anybody working on the project. And there's forms and documents and labor interviews and stuff there too. So that kind of incorporates our contract that we have for that. The grant dollars will be paying for our contract. That's whenever we were putting the budget together, that's what worked out the best. Your professional engineering and all that is mainly your local match that you provided for the project. And so ours got switched over to the grant due to some of that, and so that is the case. Won't be doing any grant draws until you get release of funds, and release of funds cannot be gotten until we receive bids in. And you can show that you can move forward at that point, so we're probably not looking at release of funds until in between that March
Okay.
and May time period. So, with that, I do have 2 copies of the contract, and I believe I gave it to Greg a month or so ago to take a look at. It's kind of our standard. I don't know if some others wanna.
you emailed this to me, right? This is
Yes,
that's what I thought, I read
believe
that
so.
today.
I think I did put everybody on that one, didn't I? So
I think so.
I think I gotta have everybody sign.
Oh, sorry. Oops.
And I went ahead and did 2 copies, that way you guys can keep an original tonight too, so.
So you can send it, I gotta send it to you.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any other questions right now in regards to the project, or I
We
guess?
appreciate what you do.
Thank you. Or just anything in general that I might be able to
No, we do appreciate all the help you've given us on this and the things that you're hopefully gonna work with us in the future.
Steve, I will have Matt give you a call on that.
He's coming
I appreciate that, thank you so much.
Yes.
in. My name's spelled right.
Well, great.
We've tried to make sure of that.
2 years.
So there are 2 sets we need to sign?
Yeah, there should be another one.
Sign one,
Oh.
Annette hasn't signed
Go
one
ahead.
yet.
There it is.
Yeah.
Oh, I was looking at it. Thanks, sir. I'll let you sign it first, and then I'll bring back this one.
That's all I have tonight, unless you guys have some questions. Like I said, Drew and them's working on plans and specs right now, and will be for a few months, so, then we'll go from there.
All right, well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks
Thank you so much.
All right, so on for minute approvals,
Sure, thank you.
for October 25th, 2021 monthly meeting, are there any corrections or changes to the minutes? And I'll make a motion to waive the reading of the minutes.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Anybody opposed? For the special meeting called on November 9th at 5 PM to pass the ordinance 11, accepting and approving and signing the documents to purchase the Bluetooth radio read water meters. I make a motion to waive the reading of that, and are there any corrections or changes to that?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'll second your motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Alright. And then for the special meeting called November 17th at noon to accept and sign the contract between the town and Bynum for servicing of the wastewater treatment plant. Are there any corrections or changes? And if not, I make a motion that we waive the reading.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Alright. For some old business. Reported last month that approximately 108 of the new water meters had been received. As of today, all meters have been received, and the utilities department is in the process of putting a plan together to begin installing them next week. Yay.
Can I ask a question?
You sure can.
My meter cover is painted blue. Is that part of the process, do we know?
No, that's probably painted blue because you issued a request to come out and flag
it's for that.
your water lines and sewer line.
So that had nothing to do with that, my apologies, sorry.
Yeah.
That means you ain't getting it yet.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Jim
gonna
just asked the water commissioner.
That's on the list, Steve.
push me to last.
While you go through the first new business, I'm gonna step out the car a minute.
Okay,
I got something I wanna bring into the
okay.
meeting.
New business, discuss and motion to prepare and set up for Christmas event on December the 11th. So, Main Street will be blocked off. What time are we gonna block off, do you
We're
know?
gonna block off around 3 o'clock.
I get to come to this one.
Okay. Hot chocolate and cookies with Santa and gifts for the kids will be hosted on the front porch of the town hall. There will be, horse-drawn carriage rides will be offered free of charge, starting at 4 p.m.
I'm gonna make a real quick note on
Okay.
that. The horse-drawn carriage is actually not a carriage, it's going to be a covered wagon, which will seat about 26 people at one time.
Wow.
So, and Chuck from Milltown is going to come up, he's gonna come up around noon. We've got some extra garland and bows and stuff to decorate the, wagon. From my understanding, he is also planning on bringing a second carriage, so that on his way back, Santa will be picked up on that carriage and brought in
Oh,
at
okay.
5 o'clock down at the fire station.
Okay.
And,
Cool.
yes, so,
And Santa will arrive about 5.
yes,
The tree lighting ceremony, the pine tree located between the post office and the town hall is the one that we'll be doing, is scheduled for 7:30. Hot cider and hot dogs will be offered by the Oolitic Baptist Church. At the hair salon, the kids can prepare food for Santa's reindeer. Table and mailbox available for kids to write and send letters to Santa. Who's gonna have that down there way out front?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and we're gonna plan on getting decorations out on Friday of this week. I don't know how the boys schedule are with the lights and that type of thing, John, if you,
He and I haven't had that conversation
Okay.
for a week or so.
well, we're gonna work on town porch decorations. And then also, I did get confirmation last week that, Lost River Game Preserve is coming up, and we've also got a petting zoo.
Huh.
We're super excited.
Well, don't see Greg getting excited, so I guess we're insured. I was just waiting.
We've probably already collected, I would say probably over 100 toys already.
I'd say at least.
Right, and we have Heidi's Hair Care, and then also this week or on Saturday, I'm going to be helping Dave out down at the Kiwanis doing sandwiches with him, and we're putting a box out there to donate, for toys to be donated. And Heidi and Diane have collected over $650 for money towards the toys.
That's awesome.
So we've had
Yeah.
we're excited, we are super excited.
Really good turnout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yes.
Really
Yeah.
good.
The Christmas thing with Santa usually does go
Yeah.
pretty well here.
Yeah,
Okay. Do you wanna talk about your things, or you just wanted to keep on going here?
Talk about your things.
Well, let's discuss briefly the Commonwealth PE study. We really need to think about, they wanted to appear here tonight to kick off PE study, and because of the items we had on the table, I didn't want to end up here until 9 o'clock. The first available date that Drew has is December 7th. So if you guys are good, I'd like to call a special meeting for December 7th. I'd also like to add a few other items to that agenda. I'd like to talk to you on insurance, right? Because that's one of the outstanding things. I also have a new payroll package I want to introduce to all of us, right? And I pulled that stuff out of this because I didn't want to make it any longer tonight than necessary, right? So if you guys are good with December 7th, I'll go ahead and advertise that. I'll go ahead and tell Drew to count on it. I'll check with him and see time-wise, since he's traveling, is it 5:30, 6, and see what he does time-wise.
So, do you wanna agree on the date for the 7th?
Yeah, December 7th, yeah.
I'm good.
Are
I'm
you,
good.
are you good with that?
Right there, Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday.
What time?
Well, let me check with Drew.
Okay, all right.
I wouldn't think I shouldn't say this, I wouldn't think anything before 5. I would think it'd be better if it's 5:30 or 6. I don't know what people's pleasure is. He's one that's traveling, so I know I'd rather not be too late, but I'll check with him first thing in the morning and see what he says.
All right.
And then we'll do an advertisement on it. The other item on Commonwealth when they come to sign that and kick it off, I put an email out to you guys, I thought the enhanced study included all 3 utilities. It doesn't, it's just 2 of them.
I read that.
So we really need to decide where do we need to pick our poison. There's no doubt in my mind, we need to do sewer. Wastewater has to be a priority. We've got several things at the plant that need to be corrected. With the engineering study, we could take those items and prioritize them and know when. I mean, they're not immediate, and I'd like to understand from an engineer perspective, what should we rank importance, rank 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then determine cost. There's several things that need to be updated. Several things need to be maintained. There's no doubt in my mind we have some challenges ahead of us with that, and I think an engineering study is the only way to go on wastewater. The town's gone too long with no attention, and now we're paying for it. Now, when it comes down to the second utility for that study, I'm really sitting on the fence between water and stormwater, right? I could argue a good case for both. Stormwater, we've got some issues in the manor. We've also got some of that will be taken care of with this stormwater, but we still have some other issues. Another good example, at the intersection here of Main and Hoosier, when it rains, the water puddles. Really need to dig that up, put a storm box, and then run that pipe, cut the road, run that pipe under and down and out Main Street. There's several instances like that around town. There's a bad place on Nykirk, up north on Nykirk, by the Pace House, that great big old drain pipe that comes down out of the gully and comes across her yard. There's a big hump in the Pace yard. We really need to eliminate that. And because of the force of that water, it comes down, it's gotten under the blacktop. Now the blacktop's eroding. And down Nykirk, we really ought to have, would benefit Greg's brother, really ought to have a half a dozen, probably 3 on each side of the street, water boxes. We need to put a water box in and run that down rather than have all that rainwater wash down the curb all the way to the intersection of Vista. I mean, so I could really, and then if I want to talk water, we've got approximately 24 miles of water pipe in the town. And probably, and this could be too conservative, probably 95% of it is galvanized metal. When we have a bust, other than the one this summer, it was all galvanized. One of the things I'd really like to look at, and I know part of the funding that Biden's signing on the infrastructure is very specific to upgrade water, right? So I'd love to have an engineering study and think about, can we replace all 23 miles or half of it, right? And over what period of time? Because it's just going to get worse and worse and worse as we go through. So, as I say, I could argue, I'd like to do all 3, right? Because I think there's no pros and cons on either side, but we really need to pick.
If I could add one thing to it, as far as the stormwater, I mean, they're both, I agree, they're both high priority. The stormwater, we actually probably have a lot of data from the previous, grant proposals, so we have a lot of that data.
We're working on.
That's why I'm thinking the scariest thing that I think is not knowing where all the water is. Because, I mean, the issue we had over the summer, that was a thing, is, I mean, what, 250,000 or more than that, gallons
700,000 gallons.
lost
Yeah,
because we
700,000.
didn't have it properly mapped. So I'm assuming, it's clean water, I mean, both are important, but if I had to guess, I would say move toward that, but I'm not committing to an answer on that, pre-discussion.
Yeah. I kind of tend to agree. It's, yeah. I can do pros and cons, and I think that lists would be equal at the bottom if I really did. So,
But the water is something that's not been looked at for a long time, so
Correct.
that kind of, to me, makes it more of a, probably a priority.
right. And just simply knowing, to Steve's point, simply having stakes out in the ground or having concrete markers in the yards to understand where the water lines are would be 1,000% improvement over what we have today.
Okay.
I mean, when the guys dig up one, the only reason we kind of know where it is because water's bubbling out of the ground.
Right.
That's obvious. But I'd rather not wait until it busts and we've got a geyser to say, oh, hell, there's a water line, right? We've got some of that, and as Zach has been on board the 3 years, he has a map in his office
Yes,
of where he suspects it is, and every time he's made a fix, or every time he's dug it up, he's noted it on that map. Perfect example, Carla, what do we have? We had to take 1 meter on the top of the Oolitic Road hill and split it into 3 connections.
Yeah.
So the guys had to dig it up. We dug up on, I think it's Ike Road that runs parallel to Oolitic Road. We got out there and dug it up, and we found a 3-inch main. Perfect. So we kind of dug around it, got ready to put a harness on it and divide it, drilled into the line, and there's no water. It's dead. It's empty. It's an old water main that we didn't know about. But yet that was the water main that was on Zach's map. And what they did, and it was only 3-inch, or that was 2-inch. Then we did a little further digging back into the yard and found a new 3-inch PVC that somebody had put in, but yet they had not put any locate on the map. So that's the kind of stuff we run into. Yeah, if I really had to pick today, absolutely have to, I would probably say wastewater and water.
And that's a very common thing in small communities when it comes to water and locates. I hear that everywhere I go, if they've got old lines and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is everybody agreeable? That,
Yeah.
I have water written down.
okay. Greg, since we've already had the motion on the floor last month, passed it, we're gonna do an engineering study. Is there anything we need to do formally to say we picked these two? Do we need a motion on the floor to say
Yeah, I
that?
think it'd be good, yeah.
So I'll
Showing
put,
the minutes, that's what you guys had
decided.
decided on here.
So I'll put a motion on the floor that the Commonwealth preliminary engineering study that we have agreed to do in the October meeting, the 2 utilities included in that study will be water and wastewater treatment.
I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Thank you.
All right. James.
I knew I was gonna be in the hot seat eventually.
Does everybody know who our new deputy is? James Harrington. He officially sworn in the 20th.
Yeah, 20th of October.
Yeah. I would encourage you to really pay attention to the numbers he's gonna give you tonight. I think it'll blow everybody's mind.
So from November the 2nd, 2021 to November the 25th, 2021, the Oolitic Police Department's K-9 unit calls for service were as follows: 1 alarm, 1 arrest warrant served, 23 agencies assisted the Oolitic Police Department. We assisted other agencies 7 times. We responded to 2 burglaries. There were 14 K-9 deployments with alerts, 2 K-9 deployments without alerts. 4 case numbers were assigned, 2 citations were issued. Criminal cases submitted to the Lawrence County Prosecutor's Office were 4. Driving while suspended infraction, 1. Driving while suspended prior, 1. 1 mental subject, which was taken to IU Health Bedford for mental health evaluation. We had 14 drug investigations, 8 drug seizures, 1 medical assist, 2 motorist assist. We were on duty 11 times, off duty 11 times. 1 OBWI investigation with an arrest, 1 OBWI investigation without an arrest. We assisted with 1 search warrant, which our K-9 alerted on a vehicle, and 180.93 grams of methamphetamine was seized from that vehicle. 1 suspicious vehicle, 66 traffic stops, 2 training events, 1 written warning issued, and 63 verbal warnings were issued for a total of 246 calls for service. So That was
Thank you.
just from, like I said, from the 2nd to the 25th of November.
What about ticketing? Speeding?
So, my true opinion about citations is, I don't give them unless I have to. To me, I want to keep the money in somebody's pocket. I don't want to, make that person choose between paying an electrical bill, especially if that person's on a fixed income, paying an electrical bill or a medical bill, or choosing between paying that citation. The only time I issue a citation is if it is a must, meaning that I have dealt with that individual numerous times and the verbal warnings are not working, or if it is something that has to be ticketed into court because I have no other option. Other than that, I don't issue citations. So,
Are you finding that, and there were what, like 8 drug seizures, is that what you said? Are they, most of them Oolitic residents or
So-
not passed in through?
so 1 or 2 of them were from Oolitic, like the individual that I turned around on, down by Salt Creek, flea market and got stopped in Knuckleheads that actually, threw the bag of, marijuana onto the ground. He's an Oolitic resident. But the majority of the people are passing through. For instance, on, what was it, the day before Thanksgiving, when I assisted with the search warrant, Mr. Groveland and I, we were at the water treatment plant, got a call from a neighboring agency requesting my assistance on a traffic stop. That individual had, just purchased methamphetamine from a residence in Bedford and was actually coming through Oolitic when he was stopped. And out of that, and then, from there I went to the search warrant and assisted with the search warrant. So it was all tied together. But a lot of the stuff that we're seeing, that I'm seeing, as far as the drug seizures and stuff like that, are out of town residents. And just because out of the 14 deployments, with an alert, or whatever the number was that I stated, just because you don't see 14 fines, what happened was, a lot of the times they had just smoked meth or marijuana or whatever it was, and they transferred that odor into the vehicle. So that odor transferring into the vehicle, my dog's still going to hit on it. So if I'm not finding anything in the vehicle, I follow it up with a follow-up interview to figure out why my dog was hitting and why I didn't find anything. So they were all good hits. Some of them, like one lady that I pulled over, she's a pharmacy tech, so she works around controlled substances all the time. So she transferred that odor into her vehicle. It's still a good hit because it's a subderivative of what he's imprinted and certified on. So,
Yeah, the numbers are very impressive.
Great job, great job.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
job,
No
and
problem.
thank you. Okay. John, do you have the utilities update?
Yeah, let me give you a short one. You already talked about the meters. One of the things, I went out to the truck, and Dan's not here tonight, neither's Jenkins. These are the new meters.
Oh, cool.
So it's a brand new plastic lid. It's not cast iron. Initially, and we picked the ones that the antenna was gonna sit on top of the lid, right? This is the antenna. And this is what I was telling Dan, that, you know, it's maybe 2/8, maybe 3/8 of an inch high. Run over with your lawnmower, you're okay. Well, I would tell you 2 or 3 weeks ago, Brian Walker from the company came up and says, hey guys, you ordered meters with holes in them to have a meter sit on top.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. He says, you don't need to do that. If you take the plastic meters,
Oh, perfect.
the antenna sits inside, there's nothing exposed, and these are actually as strong and will hold the weight of a car, lawnmower, just like the cast iron tops.
So did he send us those instead, or?
Yeah.
So
Well,
they'll sit
yeah.
not any higher.
Oh,
So
right.
nobody's driving over them anyway. I mean, if you're not hitting it with your mower
Right.
today, you're not gonna hit them with that.
right.
Oh,
And this is the antenna cord. The antenna cord hooks in here, right? And then literally, and this may not operate tonight, literally, as you open this, this is all LED readout, right? And the numbers appear when the lid is opened and exposed to light. so it'll read automatically if you want to read them manually. Otherwise, no reason even to open the lid when they drive by. Either the tablet or the laptop in the car will literally read what this is and they can validate it. And they're close enough, like in my case down in Lafayette, mine and Janine's meter is in one box. Well, Chad's gonna separate that. 1 meter per container, so we'd have to dig a hole and separate either mine or Janine's. As they drive up, and we tested this with one of them out at the plant, as they drive up within approximately 20 feet of an active reading meter, it will read it. So you don't even have to stop. You can probably drive down the street at 10, 15 miles an hour, and literally the laptop or the tablet in the car will read what the meter consumption is, and when it does, it'll give the customer number and the meter number on the tablet.
So do we have many that has 2 meters in one box?
We've probably got close to 50, 60 of them,
Mine is.
maybe a little more.
Mine is.
Yeah, there's several like that.
So you still have to stop and pull them and look on those?
No,
They're gonna separate.
we're gonna
them.
separate them.
Oh, you said you're gonna give a different signal? Or
No.
are you gonna separate them?
We're gonna
Separate.
separate the meters. We'll
Oh,
actually dig a new hole, put a new meter pit in, new lid,
Oh, that solves
and
that.
every resident then would have its own meter box, right? And that way, there's no distinction, there's no getting into it. Plus, what we've got here with the new meters, their size is a little bigger than what the old meters are, so it would really be a challenge in some of the old pits to put 2 of these down in the
Right.
ground to service what we've got. And technically, we shouldn't have 2 meters in one anyway, right? They should be separate. So we're just gonna do the due diligence of what should have happened years ago. But this is actually one of the 500 and some odd units we have.
John, so you have to be within 20 feet?
No, I'm saying, when we were sitting at the plant, we activated one of these, and as we walked towards it with the tablet in our hand, approximately 20 feet from it, it picked up the reading.
Okay, so what's the minimum distance or maximum distance away?
Well, it depends on where you are and what you got. In our particular case, the tablet we were using was a small Apple and didn't have enough RAM to really do the job that we needed.
Okay.
The company tells us that you can literally be,
I sort of say, when they come here to talk to us about these meters, they said that Zach ought to be able to go right out here in front and flip on his thing to read them, and it's gonna read the majority of it. He said they may have to go down to the end of
Right.
Lafayette and read some,
With-
and then he'll have to go over to Rolling Acres.
depending upon your terrain and the
And he may have
buildings,
to go to
it
the-
should
The
read,
manor,
he ought to be able to sit here and read half the town
yeah.
without moving.
They said
Which-
It
it,
just, when he said 20 feet, I'm like,
Yeah.
well, mine's about 100 feet off.
I simply wanted to see a demo, and it was a little out of character, and I asked for it at the last minute. So the only tablet we had was an old Apple, and we barely got the software loaded. But I wanted to physically see, because I'm in the process of getting bids to buy tablets, PCs, and printers to actually run this particular operation. So I told him, I said, before I buy any hardware, I want to see a demo. So that's what I did. But this is what will happen here. Now, part of the update tonight, and I might as well put it on the floor now, I assumed we had all the adequate lids. We do not. If you remember, those of us who were here back when we initiated this process, the bid was approximately 154, 155,000. Anything over 100.5, we had to go out and get 3 bids. And we all mutually agreed we weren't gonna do that. So we backed off the bid in order to bring it down under 100.5. What I didn't realize at that time, and I wanna say it was maybe the April meeting, May meeting, it was early, what we cut out of it was lids.
yeah, because they said that we could use the lids that we had, is what they
Right.
told us.
But what I found out, in order to use the current lids, cast iron, we literally need to take a blowtorch and cut those 250 additional lids. Literally take the lid off the box and either at the resident's place or take them back to the shop and literally cut a hole
fit that in.
Yeah, we don't
to
wanna do
fit
that.
that. And I said, pardon my French, but that's bullshit. Really? And it would take us forever to cut a hole in that cast iron lid.
Yeah.
So what I'm gonna do tonight is put a motion on the floor, out of the ARP money. I wanna purchase an additional 250 lids, $36 a piece, for a total of $9,000.
Can I ask a question?
Marilyn?
Those lids, once you're done with them, can you recycle them and get a little money back?
The cast iron?
Yeah.
Oh, we probably could, or the town could dispose of them as cast iron. I'm sure we could recycle over at Bedford.
I would throw it, I mean, to me, rather than throw them away.
Oh, yeah.
I suppose you might as well cash
Well,
it in.
and there are some that we can't use the plastic lids because of the size of it. I'll give you an example. And I can't think of her name, Janet, across the street from us. And the fire station, they have a bigger water line coming in, and they do that for the volume of water. Now, why the old Robbins place has that size of water line coming in, I don't know. But that's an exception to the rule, and what we did was, instead of taking that old lid and cutting it, we can actually buy cast iron lids from them, right? Which are bigger round, that this antenna then fits on the outside of. And that's what we'll do. In fact, I think, don't quote me, but I think I've got 20 new cast iron lids that already have a hole in them. So when I realized you have to take a blowtorch, I mean, that's a waste of time and money.
Right, especially when they're trying to get them all changed as fast as they can.
Right. So I put a motion on the floor tonight from utility. No, yeah, utility services. I get them confused with our wastewater treatment people. Utility services out of Evansville to purchase an additional 250 plastic lids for the new radio read meters. Do I?
Utility supply.
Utility supply, thank you.
And the cost is about $9,000.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
part of the package.
Yeah.
These, as part of the package, are $38. So when Brian Walker was over at the plant last week, I dickered with him and got him down $2 per lid. So we're gonna pay $36 for 250 lids, $36 a piece,
Okay.
for $9 grand.
The 20 cast iron larger lids.
Right.
Is that part of that purchase as well?
No, those cast iron lids that we need the holes in are already in our possession.
Oh.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Perfect.
Anybody opposed?
This is, and I'd just like to say that for several years, when George and Janie Zimmerman lived behind us, we had the same meters made side by side. We were getting their meters.
Yes.
They were getting ours. We ended up getting a rebate of about $600 or $800.
Right.
We were
And-
overcharged.
And especially when you do a manual read, you run into that. In this case, we could, if we could squeeze them into one pit, you wouldn't have that problem, because as these are red, there's a serial number here. These two little labels, and we peel one off and we put one in the book that Carla's got, and the other one actually physically goes on the, and we will know when we read the serial number, customer number, and how much their water is, right? So we don't have a mix-up. I mean, today, Carla has it, we've experienced where, I can't think who it was in the Rolling Acres, 2 meters in one box, we read the wrong one, billed the wrong customer, exactly what Marilyn's saying. That process will be eliminated in this.
Okay.
I got another question. Based on right now that they can read it so remotely, how often can they get a readout? You know, because part of the theory was,
At any point.
but part of the theory was, we wanted to find out, hey, if somebody all of a sudden one day, hey, your water's up 50% or 100% today, you know, how quickly can we react to that?
Well, one of the things that this gives us the ability to do is when you read it on the tablet or the laptop, it'll tell you what this reading is, it'll tell you what last reading is and what consumption is. So as they take it, they'll be able to look. Right now, Carla keys it all in and it tells her as their meters are read, it will literally flash it on the screen and you can tell it.
But
At any-
if they wanted to read them once a week,
Right.
just to see if anybody's having any out, they can go once a week and read it.
That's
They
what
can
you're
read it
asking.
every day, yeah.
What would be our frequency to do that? I mean, it used to be once a month, but now,
Well, official reading and billing is still once a month,
Right,
Yes.
right? We'd only go out and interrogate if somebody calls with a problem.
right.
so,
Right.
okay.
And literally, let's say we have a problem at your place in Rolling Acres, right? We can drive up, activate a PC or a laptop at your address. It will read this, right? We'll pick you as a customer ID,
Yep.
right? And it'll tell us what your consumption's been in the last 12 hours, 24 hours, 48
Right.
hours,
Great.
right? And we'll also, part of the package we'll have with all the hardware is a printer in the truck. So if the guys go out and see something, they can literally print it out on 8.5 by 11 and give it to you as a homeowner and say, hey, you've got a problem here, right? We don't have anything on our line, but it's from this meter to your house, you're using water, so you need to do something.
Great.
It's what we would call today, in the manual world, when we go out and read and we know it's an excessive amount based on just numbers in Carla's book that we manually write the numbers, we blue tag it. And we literally take a blue tag and put it on the door if the homeowner's not home saying, hey, you've got a water usage problem. We can blue tag it immediately within seconds almost. All right? Other questions? That's all I have on water. Thanks for the motion, thanks for the approval. That'll make life a ton easier, and I'll get with Brian Walker first thing in the morning and tell him to ship those. They do have them in stock, so
Good.
we probably have them this week. Wastewater, pumps are fine, no more issues. I think you all are aware, we did a special meeting to sign the contract with Bynum Plano out of Bloomington to be our services provider for the wastewater treatment plant and our drinking water. Steve was over there one of the days when they first started. I've got nothing but good things. I've seen nothing but good things out of them. And Jeff Farmer, who's part of that staff, has already come through with 2 suggestions of things to fix. And we actually enacted and implemented one of them. Where the clarifiers were clogging, we literally pumped that pit down, and Jeff Farmer himself put a ladder down in the clarifier pit and climbed down there, and we literally cut a support off of one of the fill pipes, which was causing some of the clogs from not only the debris that comes out of the sewer naturally, but also all the leaves. Right? I mean, it was unbelievable the number of times. I'm going to tell you, since 1st November, I've probably been over to plant 2 or 3 dozen times, periodically throughout the day, knowing Matt Brown from Utility Services had already been there and gone, just to check and make sure there was no clogs in the clarifiers. Right? Zach would do the same thing. I got Wes to the point, every time Wes comes in the morning at 7:30, he goes over and checks the clarifiers. Since Jeff Farmer cut that one end off, which opens up the amount of spill space, I'm going to tell you, it's cut the clogs in half. So to that end, I have another motion I want to put on the floor tonight. One of the worst things in the last 30 days that I've cleaned out of the clarifier clogs are leaves. Oh my God, unbelievable. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, never believed it. I would tell you 90% since the 1st of November has been leaves that have clogged that. Not all of it, but the majority of it. So today, I got an estimate from Shane Christianberry, who trimmed the trees out here at the town hall and also cut and trimmed some of the trees over there for our nightlight at the plant. And this is on recommendation from Jeff Farmer at Bynum, to take the chain link fence that goes around the property and go out 30 feet and just lay the trees down. Don't cut them up, don't do anything with them, don't dispose of them. Simply cut them, chop them, and lean them forward. They will do all of that for $3,800. And that's going, and you guys are familiar with the chain link, going out 30 feet, cut them, and lay them down. So I'm in motion on the floor tonight I'd like to have $3,800, and I need to validate this, so, I'll say tentative that, I think we can take it out of the ARP money, but I wanna validate that on the ARP conditions. But this is in service of the treatment plant, so I think it will qualify. But I want a motion on the floor for $3,800 to cut the trees 30 feet back from the chain link fence to the wastewater treatment plant. Will that solve the problem 100%? No. But I'm betting on, and Jeff Farmer and Christian Berry today, the tree trimmer, he says, oh, it'll eliminate half your problem or more.
John, is that all the way around?
Yes.
I got questions too.
And the only other person I need permission is Lenny, who lives right on the corner. His wife says, well, yeah, we don't care, because they own all the way back parallel to the plant. Now, we've already cleaned out from the fence, from what I could step off, from not being smart enough to read the deed, approximately 12 feet from that fence as we come in. We own 12 feet on the other side of the fence, the rest of it's Lenny's. But his wife was good with it. John?
I got a concern.
Okay.
You lay down all them trees,
Yep.
leaves, well, if we do assume there won't be, they won't have leaves on them. But,
Majority of the leaves are gone.
yeah, if we do it soon. But, you don't have the trees after they lay a couple years after they're down, and especially, I don't know how many trees you're talking about, and they get crisscrossed, and you get snakes, you get rotten wood, you get, I mean,
I get it.
And plus, now hang on, plus you, during droughts and burn, if you would get a fire, you know, it's great tinder for.
I hear you.
Okay.
And personally, I'd rather not cut the trees.
I understand why you want to cut them, but
Right.
it's gonna make a big mess. It's gonna create another problem.
Well,
we gotta
I don't
money
think
out
it'll create a
labor.
problem. I think you'll have some challenges like that, but when you look at it, what's the lesser of the two evils?
I don't know.
Well,
Well, right
I'll-
now,
well-
it's tearing up our equipment.
well, what I would
But
tell
it's
you
been
is,
going on for 30 years.
well,
But we need to fix it.
But this hasn't been discussed. This is all sudden.
okay, let's table it.
Let's do table it and let's talk.
Okay.
And let's
But-
talk- yeah,
well,
please.
But let's table it, so I'll withdraw.
I'm not
the
saying I won't
motion.
vote on it.
The motion's on the floor, we haven't seconded it, we'll table it, but I'll challenge you this,
All right, I'm in for a good challenge.
right? The next time it's clogged, we'll let it stay clogged, I'll call you and you can come over and clean it.
Yeah.
Cause I'm tired of cleaning the
Well, that's-
goddamn things.
Well, that's what the guys. That's what we pay them to do.
No,
But-
no, they're not there 24/7.
I know that.
So you
But
can't say that.
I don't know that there's been another councilman prior to you that's done that. It's
Well-
a wonderful thing.
Well, but you know who used to do it was Tyree, all the time. And he bitched bloody murder to the council and asked it to be fixed, and it all went ignored, which was part of his frustration when he left.
And I've been with those fellas till 10 and 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night when they've been over there unclogging it, so.
Well, I understand
Yeah,
that.
I think,
They-
yeah,
yeah.
several of us have.
I do. I understand the guys are wonderful guys. I just don't want to. Surely we can wait 30 days talk about this.
Talk about it,
I mean,
have that discussion, but I'm gonna tell you, I'll bring it back up for motion in December, right? And I kid you not, if it's not approved and we don't get rid of the trees, Bynum is gonna up their fee
Yep.
okay. Well,
because of the more visits, because, and think of this, when those clogs happen, let me back up, as the sewage comes up from the wet wells, it's dumped into two what they call liquor tanks, sledge tanks.
Right.
And those are aerated. That's then pumped down into the clarifiers, into the base of the clarifiers, right?
right.
That comes up when it comes into the diffuser at the clarifiers, and then the diffuser sends it out to the two respective north and south clarifiers. It's those pipes that get backed up. So what you do, it's just like a toilet when it backs up in the house, right? So it backs up the rest of the plant over to the liquor tanks, and then the liquor tanks get backed up.
Okay. The
So-
leaves are already down for this year. Tansy, the leaves are already down. The problem should be pretty well down 80% because the leaves are off the trees. The only leaves that's going to get over there is the ones that probably blow into the tanks. So I think we got a window that because the leaves are down for the winter.
But tell me what you're actually opposed to. The
Have you ever
trees laying
seen,
on the
have you ever,
ground?
I don't know how many trees, I don't know if he's talking 10, I don't know if he's talking 30.
My gut estimate, I'm gonna tell you probably round numbers, 40, 50,
You
maybe
ever seen
60.
trees just crisscross when they drop them? It's just a mess.
Why can't you sell the wood?
You,
Are
you,
the trees big enough?
you would be challenged to pull the wood out.
If
You
you don't
don't-
like that,
Getting
you
it out's
will.
the
You don't have enough room to pull in. I mean, these guys have a cherry picker, right, that they cut trees with.
Yeah.
There is not enough room anywhere on the property, on the outside of the fence, to drive this truck in. So they're gonna do all this manually. Shane will literally climb the tree high enough, put a rope on it, and they've got a winch that they'll go downhill, in one case, tie the winch to another tree, put pressure on that tree while his dad's cutting it, in order to fall it in the right direction. You can't, there is no way economically, according to Shane, the wood is worth anything, even firewood, because of the extent of what you'd have to have the equipment to go down and pull the trunks out, cut them, and then put them on a trail.
Merle, I'll tell you, when
It's
I
just
went
not feasible.
a couple weeks ago, just walking around the fence, tried to clear, which I did, about a 6 or 8 foot area.
Oh, yeah.
Couldn't get a vehicle through there, and I mean, I'm chopping
Yeah, you
stuff
should
down by
see the
hand.
area Steve has cleared, which
But
is
it's
what
just-
we need.
Yeah, but the thing is to go at that scale and the way that hill goes down, I mean, unless somebody built a road for that purpose, it's no way, that's the thing, there's no way to get the lumber out. It's a great idea, but it's just no way to get it down.
I've not been back there in 100 years, I don't remember what it's like.
I've been back there.
Come back, I'll give you a tour anytime around.
So you had a motion, right?
I have a motion.
Okay.
He wanted to take,
Well, I understand, but somebody's gotta move to table.
Yeah.
Withdraw your motion, move to table, a second to table, and then vote on that.
So I'll withdraw,
And table.
I need to withdraw the motion before we table it?
Well,
technically, he needs to say he wants to table it.
you're tabling the issue, not the motion.
I'd like to go out there and look before we do this. If anybody else wants to go, I'd like to go and walk around.
Go look, you've got a key.
I'll go with you,
So
I'll take a tour with you.
for the minutes, I would show
Cool.
your,
We'll set it up.
if you're willing to do it, to withdraw your motion.
Well, I'd rather not withdraw it, I'd rather table it.
I understand, but if you don't, if you make a motion to do something, and it's gonna die for lack of second.
Okay.
So that it's not gonna pass.
Okay?
So what you're wanting to do instead is to table the issue till the next meeting and
So,
bring it back to the
Promise
table.
it is,
I was
promise
gonna
it
say,
is
can
not.
he
Okay.
say-
Right,
wants to
but to do it
withdraw it.
correctly, you should withdraw your motion, so there's no motion that died for lack of second, and then we have a motion to.
Or I leave it as is and reflect in the minutes that it died for lack of second.
I don't think that's what you want, but that's.
Or you could go ahead and vote on it. I'm just one vote. I mean, you.
Well, but no, that's not, you guys need to be in sync with what's going on.
Right.
Yeah, this is just.
I'm
gonna
just
drop
telling
on
you,
us and-
with the time I've spent over there and the hours I've spent, this is an issue that needs to be corrected.
Okay,
And if you don't,
and I'm all in on that.
you don't, right?
And it's
If you vote,
okay to want to,
yeah,
look at it.
yeah,
that's
look at it,
okay.
table it,
There's nothing wrong with that.
right.
Good deal.
So I will formally withdraw my motion on the floor for the $3,800 to cut the timber around the wastewater treatment plant.
He just
Okay.
withdrew the motion.
Withdraw, there is no second to the
Whatever.
withdrawal.
I mean,
Whatever.
We need a
if
motion
nothing
to
else,
table
you
it.
can always call a special meeting if you guys decide to go ahead with it.
So we need a motion to table the issue.
Okay, I'll make the motion
back
to
up.
table the, $3,800
The
to
tree
cut the
service.
trees down at the wastewater plant.
So I could be obstinate and say I'll vote against and won't second that, right? Because I think it's the wrong thing to do, and I think it's a waste of time, and it's a waste of good energy when I could, by the December meeting, I could have every one of these trees down. So we're wasting 30 days going into some part of the coldest part of the year to where they may not be able to, because
in
of
there.
snow and wet weather, accomplish what needs to happen. So, your motion's on the, do we have a second to Tangi's motion to table it?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye.
I oppose, cause I think that, I mean, just because I've been over there myself too, and I see what you guys have done. I've seen the mess that you guys have been working on, and I feel like it is something that needs addressed.
So it's 3-2.
But you shouldn't just drop a bomb like this at the meeting. I mean, we should be made aware of it, I think. I mean, it's a pretty big decision, even though the price is good.
Well,
But when you said $3,100, I know how they're gonna drop them.
Well, but let me stop you right there and correct me if I'm
I thought
wrong. As town council, we shouldn't be huddling outside of the meeting discussing anything. So how do you propose I make you guys aware of this ahead of time?
How do we do it now?
What I'm telling you is, I violate it unless I plan this far enough ahead. I sit down and talk to you one day, and then 7 days later I sit down and talk to Brenda, and then 7 days later I sit down and talk to Tangi, because of the stupid ass Indiana legislature, right, has imposed such stringent laws. We can't operate this municipality as a damn business, and we should be able to. And I took that frustration out on Chris May and Keith Hawkins at the GOP Republican thing. Absolutely stupid. You're right, John. Why can't I huddle with you and Brenda at the same time and discuss this? It's because some stupid ass in Indianapolis has said, this is not the way we do business. So you don't want to go there with me on this. You simply don't want to go there with me on this, because it's an absolute stupid ass rule that I can't conduct business. I am getting wound up because there's no reason for it.
Okay.
I'm getting opposed on your side, and I'm also opposed on the state legislature side because of a damn law in Indianapolis.
I've got opposed by you guys on a big thing that's close to my heart, and it was a lot more
Okay,
important than
okay,
that. Because we had people dying because of the law that got opposed.
Hey
So
guys,
don't you
come
get in
on,
my face,
come
brother.
on, come on. Now. So we
This is
were
my
at,
neighbor.
What was the vote? Who voted in favor of?
I don't care what you do.
he voted in favor of, I voted opposed, he voted opposed.
How did you vote?
Do you want it
Where's
tabled?
Brendan?
I would like to know the reasons, but I don't know what you even.
Okay, we were making the motion to table it.
You know how many times I've been
She's opposed to tabling
Okay,
it.
so it's a 4-1 against tabling.
Yes,
So
so now, the
So you wanna make your
motion,
motion?
make your motion again. Make your motion again.
No,
I make the motion that.
I've
we-
withdrawn it.
Okay,
I have no motion on the floor. I'm not making a second motion.
okay, I make the motion to use the $3,800 from Christenberry,
Cheyenne Christian there.
Okay,
There's
yeah.
the estimate.
$3,800 to cut the trees down around the wastewater plant from the ARP money, if John finds out that that's okay to use it as, out of the ARP money. Do you second that?
I second it.
Brenda seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
I don't give a shit.
Did you get that? Make sure that's in
It's
there.
live, guys.
Okay, hand that back to John.
Now, this something goes bad because all this is dropped later on.
We're covered by insurance.
Okay. Anything else on the utility report?
Actually, I don't think so. Wastewater,
James, next meeting, you
Oh.
sit at the table, please.
Can we get a
So-
shirt with the hashtag out for the shit?
I'll buy
For
one.
my Christmas present.
and we could all wear them at the next meeting. The only other comment I guess I'd make for information, guys, the only other comment I'd make on wastewater, and Brendan and Tangi, you've seen, and Steve, the clarifiers, and they're not real clean, or I didn't think they were clean.
Right.
One of the things that I emphasized with buying them when they took their first test was, guys, I'd really like to know where our numbers stack up, because we don't see anything until end of month on utility services. So they took their first sample, they came back, they took their second sample the second day. The third day, Jeff Farmer and Adam came back and showed me what it was compared to what IDEM says it needs to be. I thought we'd be close to a violation. And I'm gonna use just numbers of 1 to 100. I figured we'd be in the 80 or 90s, just simply the way things look. We're in the 20s and 30s.
Fantastic.
So, I don't know what that means other than the fact that Jeff Farmer says this IDEM has been very good to us and lenient in not instituting stricter standards. So I am very surprised, very thankful that our numbers are as good as they are. So with Bynum there and where we clean up the clarifiers, because I kid you not, you can walk over there right now with a flashlight and you'll see some solids floating in the clarifiers, which is totally taboo. Those solids should be at the bottom. So one of the things to correct all that is we're gonna drain both clarifiers and thoroughly clean it out, and whatever sludge is in the bottom, they'll be pumped out. We'll kind of like starting clean, right? But we're so far away from being in violation, I was ready to throw a party over at the plant the other day. So that's very, very good news for us.
Do we know when we may do that, drain?
Jeff's working on scheduling it, because one of the things we'll have to do is have a truck prepared, a vacuum truck ready, that once we drain it, for the vacuum truck to go in and clean it out far enough down that literally somebody can get in there without getting too messy. But and what we need to do when it's down far enough, we'll take a fire hose from the hydrant at the plant and we'll turn the fire hose on it.
Great.
So, but yeah, numbers are great. Numbers are tremendous. Stupendous even, right? That's all I have on the utilities.
Okay. Brenda, you have anything tonight?
I think John mentioned insurance, so we've got that covered, so I don't have anything.
Okay. Steve?
Nothing that hasn't already been discussed.
Okay. Johnny Bob?
We got the, thanks to Judge Michael Robbins and Casey DeRosset, I believe is how you pronounce her name. She's with Division of Mental Health and Recovery. Even though we didn't get the rehab center here in Oolitic, we do have for a opioid overdose kits at the Oolitic Fire Station now. It's there's Narcan, which is the one you hear the most about, but this is called Daylox. And so anyway, Judge Robbins got a hold of me a while back, and then with Ted's permission at the firehouse and a little bit of work, and I think Steve, it was one that suggested the firehouse. It's kind of out of the way, and people can go there without being scrutinized, get this drug. Judge Robbins said it has saved hundreds and hundreds of lives. So I'm just really wanting, I know, there's 10 people that's drug addicts, whatever, alcoholics, but if you can get them in rehab centers, keep them alive long enough, maybe you can get 5 of them to recover. I think that's the biggest joy for a family. I've seen 2 ladies not fighting over beds, but 2 ladies that I know. There's been deaths in these rehab centers, and mothers are trying to get their kids in these rehab centers when there's a bed open. They're trying to talk because they're afraid their kids are going to die before they get them in a rehab center. So it's very near and dear to my heart on this. So
Does the medicine expire? Do we have a date on it that somebody needs to maintain?
I don't think it'll stand there long enough.
Okay.
I'm sure it does, but
Stay late.
I'm sure it does, but I don't think it'll stay there long.
Okay.
My fear is refurbishing it quick enough.
Okay. And is there, an 800 number, or do we call somebody for additional supplies?
That's what I got to talk to Ted about, to see
Okay.
if he's going to look. I'll probably just go down there and look.
I would say occasionally just check it and see.
Yeah, we need to.
Okay.
I don't even know how many's in each box, but it was a good thing. So
Oh, I agree.
anyway, if anybody's go down there, if you know anybody, got a family member, a friend that comes, stays with you, that they get strung out, and help me out on this, Marshall. Have you ever gave somebody Narcan?
We have, in Green County, we used to do it quite a bit. administered some today, on an overdose, if I remember correctly.
It's amazing.
Speaking of Narcan, I do need to get some for canine, in case he comes in contact. The canine dosage is the same as what we use, so.
Get one.
Is this an injectable?
I would, it's our dog, you know, I would just, if we can't get any other way, go down there and get one. I'd appreciate you, if you do it in your street clothes. And you know why.
Sure.
Is this something that's injectable?
It's,
Is that-
nasal.
It's a nasal mist.
Oh,
EMS can get it, through, intravenous, but what we use and what
You can
you
pick it up.
generally get is,
Kinda like squeeze it.
nasal.
Yeah.
Run their nose.
so that's for an emergency.
It's a one sniff.
Yeah, so it's, for, you inject it in each nasal, so.
So what about you? Do you have enough, you have it in your?
Yeah, so I have some in my first aid kit for me, but also, like I said, I need to get some more also for canine because they use the same dosage as what humans use. So, when you look at the medication that they give canine, it's the same as what they're giving humans, it just doesn't have the coating on it, is all it is.
Is it the same dose or a lesser dose?
It's the same dosage.
Okay.
But no coating.
Anyway, that's all I have.
John?
So, I have some discussion tonight, and I'll put a motion on the floor. If you remember last month, we talked about the F-800 dump truck needing about $6,000 in repair. And we put a motion on the floor not to spend any more than 25. That bill came back at $1,919.28. While the truck was sitting over at Crossroads, Harrison Concrete saw it. It's identical to the one he's got, wants to buy it. So I want to put a motion on the floor tonight to sell this F-800 Ford dump truck that the town owns to Harrison Concrete for $6,559.96. Now that's an exact amount because Harrison did concrete replacement work for us. So we have an invoice from him where we did a major road and water and drainage at Eads Place. And then we had 2 water line breaks on 11th. And then I think the 1 water line break on 10th. And then we also had to put a drain box over to plant. So he's concreted all but the plant's open roads. And you should, I mean, during the day, drive by Eads' old mower place up on Walnut. Fantastic job. Put the road back in concrete, put the curbs back in concrete, and redid the sidewalks. Awesome job. So he'd already sent the invoice, Carla has it. He contacted me and Zach, and he says, I want to buy your truck. Your truck's in better shape than my truck. His is still sitting over at Crossroads being repaired. And he says, I need a truck, and they're almost identical. The only difference you can tell is he's got a 429 badge on his, which tells me it's a gas motor. Ours is diesel. It's got 100, and ours has got 157,000 miles on it. I think we pour good money after a bad truck if we spend any more money on this truck. It's not really even capable right now for putting a plow on for winter. Zach doesn't trust it on the road with a plow and a salt box. So one of the things he's done is put a plow on the front of the old Army truck that we got from the fire station. So that's Zach's replacement for getting rid of this dump truck. So again, my motion is to sell this F-800 for $6,559.96, which basically pays that bill for services rendered from Harrison Concrete. Do I have a second?
So is that 4640, is that the bill?
That $46.40 is our net
Oh, okay.
after spending the $1,900 on repairs.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right. Yeah, I'll second it.
In favor, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Perfect. we'll take care of that. Let's see. My second, we've had some communication where we don't get out to everybody in town. We do Facebook, we do, Carla does the on-call, or the one-call thing where we can put out an automated message and phone message to everybody saying, heads up, there's a water leak, or heads up, there's a boil. We did that with the holidays saying, hey, because of the Thursday holiday, trash for this week will not be picked up on Turkey Day, but will be picked up on Monday, today, the 29th. I would say probably half the residents got it, other half didn't.
The other half had their trash out on Wednesday,
Right.
cause I was one of them.
I was going through Facebook trying to think of everybody could think of it, nobody could
Yeah.
send a message.
Well, an actual Turkey Day, had a late dinner. Zach was over at the plant. We walked over. I wanted to finalize things and talk about that F-800 dump truck. Zach and I got in the truck and drove around and picked up what plastic bags were out on Turkey Day, because as I came up Lafayette, I noticed one of my neighbors in Freddie Lewis's house there, she put out 3 or 4 bags, and an animal or a cat or something got into it, and there was trash thrown all over Lafayette. So Zach says, well, let's spend an hour and drive around, and whoever's got a trash bag out, we'll pick it up. So when we drove the cattle truck, and we had a full cattle truck.
I went out and got mine Thursday and brought it back.
Yeah. So one of the things I'd like to think about is what they call an A-frame or a sandwich board. That we could purchase. They've got lettering, and you can change the lettering. Buy a couple of them, maybe and hold it down with like a small bag of sand, put it on the corner of Hoosier and Main, and say trash pickup this week will be this date, right? Or special events like the Christmas event coming up, or like we had our trunk and treat, right? And put maybe the second one over at the entrance going into Rolling Acres. And maybe even think about later buying an additional one, because I also thought maybe instead of on Hoosier and Main, take one and put it down by the school where we have a lot of activity, a lot of cars, people coming into town.
Don't we have also a text message thing too?
I'm,
We got,
No, it's just the phone.
yeah, it's just a
One
phone.
call now can text, email, or call.
Okay. So we'd have to have we could, well, yeah, but you can't text a landline. So some of the people we call on one call is a landline,
Right.
and we'd have to have everybody's email address, which probably wouldn't be a bad thing if people are willing to give it. It just seems like we don't get through to everyone. So I went out looking, and one of the things I saw was, and where was I? I think Salem. When I went down to have my car service at John Jones, drove through Salem and saw this one sitting on the corner. And I thought, that's not a bad idea. Good way to communicate.
They've got them in Martinsville as well.
Tax and all, shipping, for 2 of them, $330.91. What's everybody's thought? I mean, short of a flashing billboard, or
Right.
I don't know what to do to get the word out any more than what we do. Carla?
Would the bank, cause the bank's like time bank is still working, right? Would the bank allow us to put messages up on
I don't,
there instead of,
can you do messages versus just time and temperature? I just thought it was an automatic time and temp.
Some of them
It's not a
just-
bad idea.
Some of them do scrolling. The only thing, John, I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you, the only thing I can see with that is that it's gonna get vandalized, it's gonna get ran over, somebody's gonna go out there and, scramble the letters, and
Okay.
so, the other thing that the other thing that I've toyed around with before too is doing a newsletter. Like a monthly newsletter. We could put a box out front, somebody could come by, we could probably put one up like that, and they could
It's
come by
not a
and
bad
pick that
idea.
up.
I,
A lot of people don't, a lot of older people do not wanna come up here and pick up newsletters.
Right,
Uh-uh.
yeah.
They do not.
I just feel like we're not getting the word out
Right.
on stuff. And this is just a thought I had. I mean, if there's other thoughts and ideas, we can always do something. Again, at $330, somebody would have to maintain it. If there's no event going on, we ought to go out and pick it up. And then we decide what needs to go on it, on when it goes on, and how long we keep it out. I mean, there'd be some structure around it. But I just feel like we're not getting the word out to most of the residents.
Right.
So, that's for your guys' information. Again, $330 for 2 of those as they are, and they come equipped with, I think, over 300 letters.
What's the size on those, 24 by 36? I'm just wondering if that's big enough too, why somebody's driving by.
24 by 36.
2 foot by 3 foot.
Yeah.
And sometimes no matter what you do, people don't pay attention.
Yeah.
I used to have a business, I advertised in the paper, they'd say, I didn't get the paper, I don't get the paper. You know, and
Yeah.
old people, not including myself, of course, old people are intimidated by, telephones where you text, they won't do it. They don't, a lot of people don't,
Yeah.
old people, some of them don't drive, you know, no matter what you do, you're beating your head against the brick wall. Unless it just goes on your water bill, like you've been doing.
Right.
The idea with the signs is a good idea, I'm not saying it isn't, but there's always gonna be somebody who doesn't.
Who doesn't see it and doesn't get it.
Yeah.
John, where was that from?
I don't. Webster store, all I did was browse online. I didn't go anything well, I went to Staples, I went to Office Max. They didn't have anything like this.
Go to eBay.
Well, I went to eBay, I also went to Amazon. And
Sam's Club.
neither one of them had anything the same or relevant.
I was just thinking, because I think the Kiwanis have something similar to that too.
Yeah, I think they did. When they advertised,
Yeah.
I think they did.
Of course, if Kenny's got his marquee up still
So
down at the
that's-
liquor store, maybe I could just get him to.
That's
There
probably
you
about
go
the same
again,
size,
daydreaming.
isn't it?
Oh.
That's
nice.
probably about the same size as the one the Kiwanis have, and it works. I mean, it works.
Yeah.
Simple idea for next year, we could do a calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
Publish a calendar ahead of
A
time.
town calendar, and then
It's
have
not a bad
most of the
idea.
dates throughout the calendar.
Okay.
Like a fundraiser, you make the money to pay for the calendar.
My next item, Annette and I were served, and I can't remember the guy's name, with a book who was coming through town and inspecting ADA compliance. And we got a book to read on it, and I've been about half through it. But one of the things that recently came to mind with Carla and Annette and I were the number of phone calls these guys get when bills go out and people have to pay that can't negotiate the front steps to put the payment in the chute or bring it in to the office. So one of the things that I've looked at, and that ADA guy did say, yeah, you have to have a ramp or a walkway like we do in the back here in order to get up to the walkway. So one of the things that I have searched, and Carlin and Annette and I also looked, are after-hours drop boxes.
Like a lock box right at ground level,
Yeah.
or just curb?
Well, be at the sidewalk level.
Yeah.
And what I envision, and this is one that I went through, one of the things that I like is if they come up with their envelope or just their check and their thing, they can just put it in the slots. Sometimes they come up, I've seen a couple of them come up, and they take an envelope out of the supply of envelopes, fill it out, right? They go over and sit on the banister and fill it out. This is kind of like what you see at a car dealership where you walk up and it's a box, you open it, and you've got a little table there to write on. And the envelopes are in there, and there's a chute behind it. And when they get done, they can drop the envelope in the chute, and then the bottom of it unlocks. So Carla, when she comes in the morning, could take the key, go out, rob it. And people then would not have to literally walk up the steps. And again, a couple months, I'm gonna say that I've noticed you guys at bill time, there's probably 3 or 4 people. I know in that one person called you and said, will you come out to my car and get my payment?
Yeah, regular ones.
That's typically what we do.
And
Yeah.
Just go down and-
I brought payments in for people when I was coming
Right.
up the steps, they
So-
holler at me.
so what I'd like to see is take something like that, put it on a black post,
That's what Grace said, just goes on a post, don't it?
Yeah, you can put it on the building, but I would prefer to have a post and not
Out there,
attach it
closer
to the building.
sidewalk,
We've
yeah.
got a ramp out here, why don't we put one
Well, you could, but you'd have to advertise
that the ramp was there?
and that the
and
payment
back?
box is in back. What I envision is maybe right at the side of the steps where the green bush is, pour a concrete pad. The other thing we could do is put it just the other side of the porch, behind the green evergreen where John parks his police car during the day. So you'd have to walk a few steps up the driveway to the
I
box.
would rather have it out here more easily accessible, because
I agree.
sometimes, you know, just one or two steps, some people just can't hardly up and up watch some of these people.
Right.
So I think that just right out front, just there.
Yeah, I think on either side of the
Yeah.
steps as you come up the steps.
Yeah, because even
Now-
if they had to grab the railing to stand there for a minute, they could.
Right. As you face the building, though, on the left, you've got the flagpole. So it'd have to be the other side of the
That's fine.
flagpole.
Is it sturdy enough or I mean, you know, with money being put in it, checks or stuff,
Yeah, it's,
that it's secure or not breakable or?
its material is heavy-duty steel. The mail slot is 1 25/100 of an inch high, 12 inches wide. Its size of box is actually 2/8 of an inch thick steel-wise. And its chute is very small. And there are other ones where they don't have the drop-down right table. It's just almost looks like a mailbox, and you just walk up, pull the slot down, and insert your payment. My only thought is today we offer them envelopes, so if we go to something that's just got a slot, being out in the open, you can't very well put an envelope in it, or have envelopes available. And I don't know how many of our folks use the envelopes, but I've seen some do it. So FYI, that one in particular, I don't know exactly, it's weatherproof, $450. Well, that one's $400, includes tax and shipping to Indiana. And then I added another $50 more or less, assuming to install it, but I don't know that. But again, I think it's something we ought to consider, which would also make us ADA compliant.
Correct. I think it's a good idea to have it out there, yeah. I'll make the motion for the $450 for the ADA compliant drop box. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Thank you.
Good thinking, Joan, good thinking.
Well, it's, the only thing that hit me was, I was gonna replace our inside one because the inside one doesn't have a flap on it anymore. So there's a ton of cold air that comes in. So when I started thinking about replacing it, Carla brought it to my attention, and so Danette is saying, well, what about those folks that don't walk up the steps? And then when this guy came by with the ADA book, kind of saying, we're not compliant here, we're not compliant there, that got us all thinking.
I think we discussed this about a year ago.
Give it?
I think so, we talked about it, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't go any farther with it.
So we'll do that. The next item I have, ordinance change. One of the things I'd like to enhance, and we talked about this, I know Greg and I have, and several of us, putting more teeth in ordinances. One of the things that I have here I've written up is ordinance 13. It's an amendment of Chapter 93, General Regulations, Nuisances, Health and Sanitation. And basically, what it is it talks about weeds and what they call weeds, grass, and rank vegetation. We hit them with this today. John's done this too, we go to Jeffries and say, hey, this address is not compliant, please go out and tell them they need to cut their grass, cut their weeds. One of the things that this ordinance doesn't have in there, specifically is sidewalks. There's a ton of people around here, Glenn Gross is one of them. He'll cut his property on Fifth Street where the garages are, but he refuses, or on purpose, I'm not sure which, to trim the weeds on the sidewalk. We have a trailer down at 9th and Lafayette, and they refuse to trim it. I stopped and asked them one day, and they said, well, the sidewalk belongs to the town. Well, no, it doesn't. According to an ordinance, the sidewalk belongs to the property owner, and if the sidewalk's broken or needs repair, the property owner's supposed to do it. And I'm not sure I agree with that ordinance, but that's what's written today. So one of the things that I'm asking in this ordinance as an amendment is, and it reads as follows, Section 93.3, unlawful growth. The owner of any lot or parcel of land within the town shall remove all weeds and rank vegetation of any kind growing upon such property greater than 6 inches. Well, I thought that would cover it until I got to thinking we need more teeth to be specific. So I'm asking that we amend and put this statement on. This includes removing any growth of weeds, grass, or rank vegetation from the sidewalks bordering any such property, residential and commercial. It gets very specific to say, you've cut your grass now, but you haven't cut the weeds around the sidewalk. Here's the tougher ordinance then that we can have John enforce to say, you have to trim the weeds and the rank vegetation on the sidewalks.
Yeah.
Discussion? Questions?
I don't know if this is really part of that, but after, let's say somebody does that and they're served and they get that fixed, should we spray that area? Or is that really not our responsibility to have that done?
Well, according to the current ordinance, it's not our responsibility as a town to maintain the sidewalks.
Yeah.
I mean, they can spray.
You're right, they can
Well,
spray.
that's right, anybody can do
And-
that.
That's what I do, is I spray mine.
Yeah, exactly, I do too. And I went down and sprayed Glen Gross's on Fifth Street. I think Diane's the one that said, oh yeah, he's not gonna cut that. So I went down and cut them, weed eated, and then sprayed it. So yeah, I think they need to maintain it better. If we were a big municipal town and had the equipment and the manpower, okay, we could go by and do it, but we're not. We do well to get done what we get done and keep the town running as is. I don't think we should have a crew or a guy in a truck driving around with a weed eater periodically cutting weeds on somebody's sidewalk. I just don't, I think that's the responsibility of the homeowner.
Another thing where these weeds are coming up is out of the concrete, the blacktop. You know, like we have no.
No sidewalk, yeah,
No sidewalks, but I still maintain out to the road, and I
Right.
even clean the
Right.
weeds out of the little trenches that I got put in there, to keep the water out of the yard.
right.
But I noticed, and I'm not gonna give you, I'm not gonna say who, but one of the neighbors has, where on their side of the road, it was just literally full of leaves and weeds coming out of the road and the little gutter that they've got there.
Okay.
And it's just tearing up the blacktop.
Yeah. So consequently, I'm gonna put a motion on the floor for ordinance number 13 for chapter 93 of Oolitic General Regulations, Nuisance, Health and Sanitation, section 93.30, unlawful growth, to include the statement of removing any growth of weeds, grass, or rank vegetation from the sidewalks bordering any such property, whether residential or commercial. Do I have a second to that
I'll
motion?
second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Okay.
Now you need a motion to suspend the rules.
Yeah.
I have
So,
a question,
wait,
it's kind of in a
let-
different, sort of, but.
Let me finish the motions first. In order to pass this tonight and make it effective immediately, I have a motion to suspend the rules to pass ordinance 13 a second time and for a second reading. Whereas the Town Council of Oolitic has determined the need to amend Oolitic General Regulations, Chapter 93, Nuisance, Health and Sanitation, Section 93.30, Unlawful Growth. The owner of any lot or parcel of land within the town shall remove all weeds and rank vegetation of any kind growing upon such property greater than 6 inches. We will add the statement, this includes removing any growth of weeds, grass, or rank vegetation from the sidewalks bordering any such property, residential or commercial. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Okay, that was the motion to suspend the rules, now we need a
Motion
for the
passed.
second.
Right.
To pass it.
So I have a motion to put a motion on the floor to pass ordinance number 13 for the final time.
I'll second that motion.
Angie?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Perfect, thank
Have
you.
him check his. Aye.
Yeah,
Oh.
me.
John?
Yeah.
Check that out.
My next item, pass it down to Annette. She'll need to keep that. And I've already logged it in the folder, so I'll give you that folder back in that.
Okay.
My second ordinance, ordinance number 14 tonight, I'm putting a little more teeth into general regulations, chapter 93, the same item, nuisance, health and sanitation, section 93.3.1, the other one was 93.3.0, notice to remove. What I'm doing here is, as the ordinance reads today, we've been having John go out and serve notices. The ordinance reads that the clerk treasurer, right, shall issue a written notice. What I want to do is simply insert, right, the clerk treasurer or their designee, or the town marshal, or their designee, or the deputy town marshal, or their designee. That's simply all I want to add in, is giving the ability really to put in writing and put in the ordinance what John's already been doing, right? But it gives then the ability for us to delegate it, if you would, right? To enforce this by a written notice. And it is a written notice, and I don't really, you've seen one or not, I should have brought one. John's got one already on the PC that he just fills in the information and the address and everything happens. But this is basically the 93.3.1 section simply deals with written notice to the homeowner, and if they don't do it, what the fines and penalties are. So I'm going to put a motion on the floor tonight for ordinance number 14 to simply add in to chapter 93 nuisance health and sanitation, section 93.3.1 this time, notice to remove. And basically it reads, as the clerk treasurer shall issue a written notice to remove weeds and or the rank vegetation to the landowner. The landowner shall remove the weeds or other rank vegetation within 3 days of the date of that notice. Said written notice may be served upon the landowner personally by law enforcement by leaving a copy at the location where the violation has occurred, and by mailing a copy regular U.S. first-class mail to the last known address of the landowner, or by mailing a copy certified mail to the last known address of the owner. That is the ordinance today. I want to insert, as it reads, the clerk treasurer shall issue a written notice. I want to insert after clerk treasurer, or their designee, or the town marshal, or their designee, or the town deputy marshal, or their designee. It's simply inserting that one line, delegating who can actually serve the notice, which puts us more compliant with what action we're taking today. So I put that motion on the floor to amend chapter 93, section 93.3.1. Do I have a second
I'll
for that
second
motion?
that. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Okay. In order to make that effective tonight, I'm going to put a motion on the floor to suspend the rules for a second time and for a second reading of ordinance number 14. Whereas the town council has determined a need to amend the Oolitic General Regulations, Chapter 93, Nuisance, Health, and Sanitation, Section 93.31, Notice to Remove. The new ordinance will read as follows. The clerk treasurer or their designee, the town marshal or their designee, or the town deputy marshal or their designee shall issue a written notice to remove weeds and other rank vegetation to the landowner. The landowner shall remove the weeds or other rank vegetation within 3 days of the date of the notice. Said written notice may be served upon the landowner personally by law enforcement by leaving a copy at the location where the violation has occurred and by mailing a copy regular U.S. mail to the last known address of the landowner, or by mailing a copy certified mail to the last known address of the landowner. Do I have a second to my motion?
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Okay. So I put another motion on the floor for the final passage of ordinance number 14 for chapter 93, section 93.1.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Perfect. The only other piece of business that I have is a short update on the Old North School. Of course, we got back last month, I told you we got back the engineering study. Of course, the cost went up, we knew that was gonna happen. The other thing I've done in working with, and I think I acquainted this board in October, that Indiana Landmarks has convinced Mr. Stark, the owner, to sign it over to the town. I've not taken any other action on that because we as a board haven't discussed whether we really want to jump in feet first with that. But one of the things that I was asked to do through Indiana Landmarks, and I've done it, is called Humphreys, Greg, I believe his name's Greg, who is a stonemason. And actually, well, and let me back up. He actually was the mason, he and his company, that rebuilt the French Lick Hotel, the West Baden Hotel, when they went in and removed stone and removed the pointing and all, and tuck pointed it and put it back and matched the cement or the grout to match the rest of the building. Very talented individual. In fact, he's building right now a new home for the Cook family in Bloomington. Right? So I've asked him, and 2 weeks from tomorrow, he will be in town to do an analysis of the building. Based on what he sees on the outside today, what's his estimate to shore up the building from a tuck point perspective of what we see is loose? And remember, John, we saw a bunch of tuck point that had fallen out, but yet some of it was still very solid. He would literally give us an idea, estimate-wise, what it would take to mix mortar to match that old tuck point and tuck point the entire building and reset any of the stone that's loose. So it should be an interesting conversation, an interesting estimate. One of the reasons Indiana Landmarks wants that is they're getting someone who's going to come in and give us an estimate on what it would take to put a new roof on it. That should be another interesting estimate. These estimates are being gathered because I think at the end of the day, if Bill Kniese, I think is how you pronounce his name, out of Salem, as a contractor, he's still interested in the building, this would go a long way in helping understand what we'd have to do to at least make it weather tight. So, should be a very interesting conversation with this mason when he comes in to understand what it would take to tuck point and reattach any stone that's loose. And he may have to remove stone, right? Reset it and reseal it and all that kind of stuff and reattach it to the brick wall. So should be interesting. And I assume I'll have that estimate from him by the December meeting, but I'm not sure of that. That's all I have tonight.
Okay, we didn't have a paper to sign in tonight, I don't know.
No.
Did anybody wanna talk tonight?
There's some kind of, I think there was an ordinance or something going on about businesses and kind of being crashy and too. At one time, there's all the lawnmower shops around town that haven't been kind of cleaned up. I was wondering about AJ's down here. It looks kind of, and it's out there
You
working.
mean the car place that was supposed to be a real car show?
It's a flea market kind of
Yeah.
crash. I don't know.
I've had a couple complaints about that.
It was down there the other day, and all around the building, there's just, it's just.
We need to send them a letter.
Well, and one of the things I think we ought to consider, and I talked to John Jeffries about this, and John was gonna come up with some heavier language on top of that, and I always forget the guy that lives behind it. Right behind the beauty shop. I can't think of his.
Spears.
Kerry, isn't that his name?
Spears.
No, it's the little house before you get to
Oh.
Spears. Anyway, he complains about when they come out of the alley and
Yeah.
trash in his yard and all that. One of the things he'd like to see done is a fence put up, and I don't think that's a bad idea. If we could get that guy to put a fence up along the alley to kind of fence it in, at least you wouldn't see it from the, even Kenny Spears has mentioned something to me about it. But one of the things I asked about was, there's a couple old cars sitting there that have been jacked up and sitting there for weeks and months. There's a couple other cars around town I'd like to have moved. But the way the ordinance reads today, and this is where I asked John Jeffries to give me some wording from him of what he believes it should change. The way the ordinance is reading, if it's a business, and I'm gonna give the example, down here off Hoosier, across from Kenny Hawkins's old gas station where he's got cars, there's an old green 54 Chevy sitting. Well, Kenny happens to own that brick building that's 2 apartments. And in the window, he's got a sign that says Hawkins Auto Sales. So that old green 54 Chevy that sits in that parking lot is grandfathered, if you will, or protected because Kenny declares that's part of his Hawkins Auto Sales. And when I went down and talked to Kenny about it, because I know Kenny, I've known Kenny for years, Kenny says, he says, yeah, the board wanted me to move it, but the board then told me, well, if I designate that as business, then it's protected. So he just had a sign made and put it in the window of one of the apartments, and it states there. So, wait a minute, I'm not done yet. So, Kenny said he'd move it, so we could be okay. But the other item that's there across the alley is Cummings. Isn't his name Bob, I think?
Yes,
Bob Cummings.
Bob Cummings.
He's got an old trailer that's sitting there and an old car body that's sitting there. I tried to get him all summer to cut the weeds and he wouldn't do it. Well, when I went to John, John says, well, he's protected by, and I don't have